Hello. I believe I have discovered the nature of the universe and essentially gravity. Gravity is everything. So this all started. I went on a date with somebody and they drugged me with cocaine. I unknowingly was drugged through my gums, and I have an anxiety problem, and the cocaine caused extreme anxiety and paranoia, which I tried to treat with marijuana, which actually made both symptoms exponentially worse. And ever since, I've had um, extensive auditory and visual hallucinations. Auditory hallucinations are something I've dealt with my whole life, but the visuals came after the cocaine. And a couple months after that incident, I had an episode of deja vu where I came up with this potential explanation for what was going on with my brain. And basically, I applied all of the elements of astrophysics that I knew to exist and drew a diagram of what I thought the universe looks like. And when I looked up a diagram of the universe, it was the exact same diagram, just with less information added into it. The main differences are this cylinder that goes from each point in space-time to the other end of the double cone of mass created by the Big Bang. For instance, this is a point in the past. This is the current point in space-time. I'll explain more of that later. And this theoretical cylinder is where antimatter exists, and it makes up the majority of the observable universe. As the universe expands, it gets proportionally bigger. So all of this is a resource. It's energy. Every bit of energy in the universe was contained in the Big Bang right here, and it expanded in both directions. And because gravity is perfect, both planes of matter are identical, because all matter is affected by gravity, and it affects everything, about everything in the universe, including life. So gravitational waves produced by the movement of matter through space-time fills this cone with antimatter, which accelerates toward the center back in time faster than the speed of light and gets propelled the other way. And the process repeats. That's what gravity is. That is the force connecting the two halves of the observable universe and its mirror. So, as, for instance, a black hole becomes supermassive, the mass increases as it moves across space-time, which would cause a gravitational ripple that could potentially cross the center of the cones, connected through a sort of string of gravity composed of antimatter and visible matter at the actual observable universe, but in the space-time composed of antimatter, it's just a string of particles that we have observed. We've seen antimatter, we've held it, we've trapped it briefly, but we've yet to define its properties. And 68.3% was the calculated energy in the universe that is dark. And so that would mean that we are 68% of the way through the size of the universe that gravity allows to exist. Once the universe is a perfect cylinder, and antimatter, dark energy, is 100% of the energy in the universe instead of 68.3%. physics no longer exists, because these strings that connect this point to this point are now parallel with the cylinder. They get stretched out, which means that the antimatter accelerates toward the other end faster than the speed of light, and it never stops. And because of that, gravity no longer exists, physics no longer exists, matter no longer exists. The antimatter annihilates the matter. Everything's just gone, instantly. But that's when it reaches this point. That's when every bit of gravity straightens out. And that's at an unknown point in the future, because we don't know how much energy creates the observable universe. To find out how much energy creates the observable universe, we have to measure the light from all of the stars that we can see and factor in the gravitational effects of dark matter. And theoretically, that's it. If we get that number and it matches the energy inside of this marble that was the Big Bang, we can use it to calculate every instance in space-time. And theoretically, through a black hole, see the other side of space-time, and it would be identical. Or, depending on its mass, we could just see a little bit back into space-time. It's just about perceiving the change in the plane that is the universe that we can see. It's affected by the gravitational waves. So now, this gets to the theoretical part that relates to my déjà vu. Life in this model of the universe is a miracle created by science, a cause and effect for every single action of every single black hole, solar system, star, planet, piece of dust, atom, subatomic particle. They are all controlled by gravity, and gravity is perfect. So, we, as conscious beings, are a form of life, and we developed senses to perceive the universe in different ways that were necessary for our survival. Because nature is cruel, life has to do work to survive, and that instinct of survival is only part of our senses and our perception of the universe. The peaceful part of our minds, the part that's just observing the universe without intention, just the fact that there is light and that we understand that we're in the universe and we understand the concept of peace. That part of our minds evolved alongside our necessity of survival. So as we as a species no longer feel this innate sense of survival, our extrasensory perception becomes more refined. And this would explain the phenomenon in Buddhist culture, the holy Om, or something to that effect, which is a extremely peaceful mind being perceptive to gravitational waves. The more perceptive we are to them, the theoretically we'd be able to perceive the ripples in space-time, which is just like going back into space-time, which would explain a lot of mental illnesses. It would explain déjà vu. It would explain premonition. It would explain a lot of parts of the human experience. And to fully analyze these parts of the human experience, we have to analyze the brain of a mentally ill person at the subatomic level. We need to understand neuron and synapse connections, neuron and synapse connections, and why they do what. The cause and effect for all human emotion at a subatomic level. And that, in turn, would allow us to imagine the inner workings of the entire universe, because we are developed by the same force. When we're peaceful, the survival is earthly. Those instincts go away over the time of our intellectual evolution. they might not go away completely because that's just the way DNA works. But it's an evolutionary perception of gravity that exists within humans. And I can prove that using gravity and the human brain and just samples of people that have these problems, like extensive deja vu episodes, visual snow, dissociation from reality, tinnitus, hyperacusis. They could all just be results of our survival instincts reacting with ripples in space-time, and we are perceiving the ripples in space-time through some kind of extra sensory imaginative part of our minds that we just haven't developed yet. So, to prove this, I need to be able to measure the light from all the stars in the universe, measure gravity's effect on that light, and calculate how antimatter affects that light, and calculate the effect matter has on antimatter. This is all in the future. I believe the first steps are fully understanding what we can about the energy quantity of the universe. I believe the closer we get to the absolute number is the closer we get to fully understanding the universe and understanding ourselves. If we don't understand the absolute inner machinations of our mind, we will never be able to create the technology to progress faster than we evolve. That's just how it works. So theoretically, if we were beings that could perceive gravity very well, and we could create ripples in space-time with massive objects, or just by accelerating particles faster than light somehow, we could simply focus on the change in gravity to travel through time. It would be extrasensory. And this makes sense with the gravitational theory and the current state of life. This makes sense in theory. The only way it doesn't work is if gravity is not perfect. But that's yet to be proven. E equals mc squared, baby. E equals mc fucking squared.